So what does a smart city look like? It links so closely to the previous presentation that I think we compared notes beforehand. But what I do want to say to you is that the least bit of technology that's implemented in any municipality already has a bit of smart in it. And the idea that a smart city must look like Singapore or Santander or London or New York is a very big pie in the sky for South Africa. I'm going to give you a bit of who I am. In last year, I started a thing called Civil Coffee Clutch. It is to bring industry consultants to local government together with local government officials on a learning platform so that we can learn from each other. There are two subject matters covered. The one is smart city and the other one is cybersecurity. I also wear a bit of a hat of being the chairperson of the cybersecurity task team for the Western Cape municipalities. And you will see I've got a very distinctive color background on my slides. Our mission is to lead local government from turmoil to service excellence. Now, my personal background is I'm a IT governance specialist. I wrote my first policy in, just check the age of everybody, in 1994. I was instrumental in implementing the first router network in government in 1991. And we didn't plan to link that thing to the internet. But when it did link to the internet, it couldn't handle the traffic. And it took years to get it to a point where it could handle the traffic. And we are imagining the future. I've got a very interesting statement at the bottom. Those who blindly stare at and accept things as they are will never shape the future. What's happening in your heart when you look at South Africa? The narrative here is your 16-year-old son is taking a date with his unlicensed keys that you hand over to him. He is taking his date on a trip with your car. And you know the risks. And you say to him, enjoy the evening, but what are you saying in your heart? Please don't mess up my car and don't get caught and don't drink. So when we say South Africa's got a future, what's happening in heart? Because that is what carries the frequency. And the frequency is we are going to be the next Zimbabwe. So why are we around the table if we believe that nonsense? We are together to imagine the future. If you are here to learn, you learn because you want to change the future and not cast it in stone the way it is at the moment. And I know local government is in a mess. One of my towns I mentioned was Graaff-Reinet. If you turn off the main road, which is well kept, you better have some very sturdy tires on your potholed car. Otherwise, you're going to have some trouble. So I understand why somebody that stays in Graaff-Reinet drives a 4x4, but I don't understand why somebody that stays in Sandton drives a 4x4. So my mission today is not to tell you about smart city and smart tech and whatever it is. It's to clarify a few things about smart cities. Now, a smart city is a living learning system that continuously monitors and knows what happens across the municipality using digital sensing and data analysis. And based on what it knows and senses, it can either AI make a decision, or AI send out an alert to somebody to give attention, or AI Everything looks the same as yesterday, so let's continue with delivering the service. A digital city, on the other hand, is citizen-centric. It's connected. Its citizens are also connected. It's responsive and service-oriented, and it's rendered via digital means. Now, when I say digital means, for those of you who get your hacks up about people not having access to computers or smart devices, the Constitution and all the other acts around local government empowers local government to have digital and physical access means. So somebody must still be able to walk in through the door and log a call. But that is often the norm because the other facilities don't exist. So, by combining smart and digital capabilities, municipalities can build future-ready cities where technology enhances daily life. And I will look at a few of them. I just want to say that technology isn't limited to computers. Now, the 4IR has got a very interesting hidden dimension, and that's emerging methods and not just emerging technologies. You can do things smarter without using technology. It doesn't have to be technology. This is, of course, we are in the AI, we entered the AI hype cycle. Interesting situation I had about 2 years ago. Very prominent organization asked me to develop a digital strategy. And being who I am, a strategist, my first question is, what do you want to achieve? No answer. Okay, which supplier did you speak to? Because they convinced you need to digitize. So the hype cycle is not going to take you anywhere. Technology has to empower business. If you implement technology for the sake of technology, it will fail for the sake of technology. If you implement technology to enable the business, you will derive value from the technology that's employed. Why do we need smart cities? Now, I'm not going to go through all the points on here. You can read it by yourself. But what I do want to allude to is South Africa's in a financial crunch. Our lovely area that we are in, Drakensberg municipality, in the first 3 months of lockdown, our economy shrunk with 800 million rand in 3 months. 25 restaurants closed down permanently. The hospitality industry was tarnished. We are now in 2025, in 2024, the foreign visitors or the foreign tourists recovered to about 75% of what we had before COVID. And they are primarily Germans. My daughter stays in Germany. My son's best friend's father comes to Bloubergstrand to do kite surfing. It's apparently the best place in the world to do that. So the Germans love South Africa. You can sit in this time of the year, you can sit in restaurants, they are escaping from the winter. You can just hear the Germans talking to each other. It's rather cold there. Even their summers are cold. I had to wear a jacket when I went in summer. So we are looking at a shrinking economy. We are looking at the number of indigent households increasing. That means a household that can't pay tax, that can't add value to the money that must maintain the business. We're looking at corruption that makes money disappear. So we are really we're also looking at infrastructure that's aging and crumbling, it's not maintained properly. That is now an inheritance In Drakenstein, we bumped into a water pipe with water in it that nobody knew what there was still running water in it. They thought it was just an empty pipe. It's not in use anymore. So somebody drilled a hole in it. Well, there wasn't supposed to be water in here. We're going to put fiber in here, but there's water in here. So there's a problem. We don't have records of what pipes were laid 130 years ago. Those records were not kept. And the generation that knew about those pipes don't exist anymore. So how are we going to maintain that knowledge and build up the knowledge again? The AI and so on will have to play a very big role in it. The decision-making process of a human, you observe, you gain knowledge, you measure it to your frame of reference, which brings a bit of intelligence into place. It either confirms or shows a deviation, and you decide to stay or make a change. And that's exactly what a smart city does. It observes through sensing, and sensing can be IoT devices or it can be a soft probe. What it senses gets analyzed through the data analytics to build a picture of what is. It's a learning experience, so it matches that to what it knows that situation to be before. You can spot trends, you can make forecasts into the future. It can become intelligent because you teach it to know what to do. You know, when you install these systems, the AI systems, you can see them running and matching and running and matching, and they'll start to ask you a question. Is this okay or not? Yes, it's okay. So that goes into what the situation should look like. So over time, it builds up a record of what the situation should look like. So suddenly, there's a pipe burst. The AI system tells you, a pipe has burst. Do I close this valve, or do you want me to just send out an alarm? Now you say to it, close the pipe, close the valve. Next time, it will know to close the valve before it informs you. So that's the way that smart city technology develops. So human versus AI decision making, we will definitely still have humans in the game, but the humans will become better skilled. And we will become experts in training artificial intelligence into the future. So we will be experts in establishing smart cities. The biggest hurdle we face in local government with implementing smart city skills. It is absolutely shocking to see the dependency on external service providers when it comes to skills. I come from a very stringent IT background. The dependency on Microsoft service providers is going through the roof because you can no longer train 1 or 2 or 3 IT technicians in everything that happens in the Microsoft space. So we now start to rely on consultants to fill the gap in knowledge. Now, we've got municipalities that don't have IT people, and we've got municipalities that only have one IT person that does everything. Supports the network, but you're also expecting that person to be the strategist. And you're expecting them to be the programmer. Well, you don't get all those skills in one person. I don't know how to program. I don't know how to support a PC. I'm not interested. Somebody else's problem. And for that, I have an Apple Mac, not a Windows computer. It's a bit more sturdy and reliable. Other aspects of digital services, we are looking at connected services. Everything has to be connected. Now, that's a very interesting statement to make. the more devices you connect to the internet, the bigger your threat landscape is for cybersecurity breaches. Now, IoT devices is, of course, the things that has to be in order to sense, and all of them, every one that you put in place, creates a network security breach point. And we need to know about that. So before these things goes into the ground or into the water pipes or into the electricity, we have to plan security. And this is where your cybersecurity expertise come into play. Anytime, anywhere access, for the policy people in the room, there's a policy from government that was never published. It was called the e-government policy. It was drawn up in 2000, submitted to Cabinet in 2001. Cabinet threw it back and said, we've got enough policies, tell us how to implement. Now, that is where the www.gov.za website started, which had its own pitfalls, which I won't allude to. Automation and artificial intelligence, we're looking at development of chatbots. There are a couple of municipalities in the Western Cape that's already looking at developing chatbots. So everything is about making it faster and quicker. You know, if we don't employ technology to enhance service delivery, enhance or improve operations, a municipality that doesn't have the capability to embrace that and implement it won't be able to deliver services at the end. The service landscape is outstripping the number of people that's available to do the work in municipalities. So we've got to put tools in their hands so that they can start to specialize and become more productive. There are certain routine things that we have to take out of the hands of people. And one of them is data. Because when a user interacts with data, the data will fail at some point in time. You're going to damage data integrity if there's human interaction with it. More security and transparency, automated threat detection and response, open data-enabled citizen engagement. All these things are there to just make life easier and to make sure that the data of municipalities and citizens are protected. And it's also the reason why municipalities are target to hackers. Money. The biggest money in government lies in local government, although everybody thinks that the biggest money is in national provincial government. Just to give you an indication, local government pays financial consultants 107 million rand a year to do their statements that are audited. And then you only have 18 clean audits, countrywide 237 municipalities. We've got something like 48 municipalities that approves unfunded budgets, which means they're going to spend more than they get in. There's a municipality in Northwest Province that pays 12 million rand in salaries per month, but they bring in 2 million rand taxes per month. You can make your own calculation there. They're in big trouble. They're definitely not going to fix potholes. And then also e-government services, the ability of citizens to communicate and transact with government. But through this, that last little bullet I have there, we have to consider the connectedness of people. If they don't have a smart device to connect, they must still be able to walk into one building and not, no sir, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong building, but you just about 5 kilometers down there's another building, sir. 5 kilometers down to get to the other building, and oh no, they sent you to the wrong building. Okay? It is legislated that government must have a single door to walk in. Show me how that legislation is implemented. It's legislated that a council, a municipal council, must have a dashboard, which I will show you now, to give them an overview of what's happening in the municipality. You know how those things are generated? Excel spreadsheets. Oh my word. So much intellectual property locked up in Excel spreadsheets. So this is the theory. Let's get to the practice. A smart method we implemented, and you will see Drakenstein's little logo at the bottom, because everything I'm going to show you now is Drakenstein except for one. We had to have policy approved at council, in a council meeting. Now that process, minimum 13 months. From the moment you make a change. Now, we're not using Trend Micro anymore. We're now using Microsoft Defender, and it has to be approved by the council. 13 months minimum to get it onto the desk of council and get it approved. So, what did we do? We need resilience. We need to be able to move. So what we implemented here was a cascade of a governance system that cascades approval, so it delegates approval of different things to different levels. So now, if I have to make a small change, which is not going to have a big business impact on the governance system, the person that owns that change can make that change immediately, report it at the next steering committee meeting, I've made the change, and have it approved there. So we've got a system which is now a method that is now more resilient to change, and we can absorb change very quickly. If it has a strategic impact, it's going to go through the 13-month change process. Case study, Drakenstein busy implementing the wheelie bins. This is a project that's going to roll out over the next 2 years. You only empty a bin when it's needed. You can optimize because of the GPS coordinate, GPS tracker on the trucks. You can start to optimize the routes that they follow when they collect garbage, when they collect waste. We have improved service delivery. You don't drive to an empty bin to try and empty it. And if the bin is full before the week is over, you can collect it. Of course, you know now this bin is full. There's a cost savings because it reduces unnecessary trips, and from this, all is derived from data-driven decision making. Now, one thing that I need to just allude to is diversity of information systems. All the information systems in a municipality don't talk to each other. Data structures won't be exactly the same, and it's a journey that needs to be followed. This is an architectural journey that we need to take into the future in most municipalities, which now should tell you that to put AI on top of this, you're going to need to put some intelligence in between so that it can access data and make sure that when we talk about a cup of coffee, that it's not a cup of tea. So that type of determination still has to be made. Now, when these trucks travel the roads, they've got a GPS locator on it with a camera. It sees a pothole. It reports that pothole with GPS into the following information system, which I'm just going to start to, it's the customer relations, part of the customer relationship management system. It's called the complaints and problem management system. And for those of you who are from Drakenstein, the app's name is SeeClick Fix. If you haven't installed it yet, I think it's worth installing. The problem statement that we were faced with is we had 3 different numbers that people could call, and they could walk in to register a fault. The recording of the problems were on paper. So paper get lost, spreadsheets gets deleted, it has different versions of the spreadsheet. We allocated to the wrong department. We've got 3, 4 teams sent out to tend to the same problem. Now, at some point in time, for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, the statement was made, we cannot continue to do things like this. It was a rather expensive exercise to come to where we are today, and that is what they implemented. There's a multimodal access to report a problem. So you can still walk in, you can phone in, but you can also use the app. So you report a problem, the citizen receives a notification, which they didn't receive before, that the problem has been recorded, and when the complaint is resolved, they are informed. And in the background, there's a process kicked off. The problem is allocated to the right department. The right department sends out one team that is suitably equipped to tend to the problem at the right place. So they're not pitching up in Bukweni when the problem is in Wellington, which of course also happened before. And then in the background, so they go out, they resolve the problem, the citizen gets informed that this problem is resolved, but in the background, that information goes into a planning system that on GIS shows all the problems throughout, it classifies the problems, and it starts to show hotspots. Down at the KWV building in Paarl, there's a hotspot with water leaks. So is it time to plan the replacement of that water pipe besides normal maintenance into the next 5 years or the next 10 years? So that type of information can now be derived. We actually have actionable data-driven decision making coming from a system with very little human intervention. And by the way, the team that goes out to resolve the problem has got a little tablet. They take a photo of the thing when they start, and they take a photo of it when it finishes, and when they say finish, it closes the call, and the citizen is informed that this problem has been resolved. And there's the dashboard. Very interesting dashboard. Each one of those bars is drill downable or clickable. You click on it and you get the information what lies behind them. In this reporting period, they received 193,000 calls, and they closed 187,714 is open, 1,500 in progress, and 4,178 has been acknowledged that it was received. At the bottom, the drill down is what type of problem is it, which department it was allocated to, and who the team leader is that goes out to fix this problem, and the team leader has a number of calls connected to that team leader. What they are setting out to achieve with this dashboard is they've got service standards, so they have to respond within the service standard time, and the success rate at the moment is 55.5% of all calls closed within the service standard time. Now, you can immediately sit behind this dashboard and say, why are we only on 55.5? And you click on it and you can drill down and see where the problem areas are. Now, as far as the client's concerned, the call is closed. But as far as planning is concerned, this was a quick fix. But we need to order a new valve so that we can replace the quick fix. So the call on the business's side stays open until the valve is replaced. Los Angeles, California, with their wildfires, this is the only foreign one I will talk about. They look at what's happening on social media while there's an emergency, so that they can gather photos, GPS coordinates, and a hotspot analysis of where the hotspots are. So where you see on a GIS system, the biggest spot, you will know this is where the hotspots is, because this is where the most complaints come from. They've got photos on social media, so they've got a good idea what is happening in that environment, so that they can ship the right equipment to go and assist with the fire. There's another case study that I was looking for, but I couldn't find it. It's called at My 311. Which is, I think it was Singapore that did this in the past, but it seems like they upgraded now. When you have a crisis on Facebook, you said at My 311 and you put in what your crisis is. They've got an engine running in the background that picks up at My 311 of social media and identify the crisis, allocated to the right department, AI, all the way. Allocated to the right department and ship out the support that's needed. In my daughter stays in Munich. There was a tree that had a branch broken, kind of. It was lying against a building. The fire department was there to cut off that branch before it fell to the ground. And it was wind that ripped it. So the type of emergency response that we are striving towards as local government in South Africa is that type of emergency response. We don't want to wait until the tree falls on your car. We want to be able to respond as early as possible. Smart and digital cities should not be complicated. If we can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then we are talking technology, we're not talking business. And in local government, it must improve service delivery, it must save costs, and it must improve operations. Those are our value criteria. No technology can be employed if it does not address a business need. Technology for the sake of technology is riding hype cycle. Last bit of what I went through in the late 1990s, we rewrote the hospital information system for the big hospitals in government hospitals in the Western Cape. Very grand. We went from the green screen to colored screens, deployed it to the hospitals, and nobody was using it. They stayed on the green screens. So the question was asked, hey guys, what happened here? What's spotting? And the users came back and said, you rewrote the system, but you never spoke to us, we refused to use it. Because this green screen system has got problems and you didn't fix the problems in the new system. So if you don't take the business on the transformation journey, you're going to fall flat on your face with R1 million spent on technology that can do absolutely nothing. Last comment, technology is not the solution. Technology plus business that solves a business problem is a solution. IT does not own a business solution. The business owns it. The process owner is the driver of the solution. And thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Coetzee. Is there anybody in the room that has a question or a statement for Mr. Coetzee?
Mr. Coetzee, your presentation on the wheelie bins interested me. I'm a resident in Drakenstein. I know a bit about what's going on here, but it does tickle my mind if you say, well, I can understand it that the wheelie bin will have to indicate whether it is actually full, half full, or practically empty. And the truck will pass it if it is empty or half full. And then you say there's a cost saving then, because that I can't understand, because the truck is in actual fact going along that road. But tomorrow morning that same wheelie bin will then indicate I am now full, and the truck will have to return for one wheelie bin. Is that in actual fact part of the system, or how do we see it going forward? Because I think Drakenstein is fairly on the ball as the future goes. I think we also had the first water pressurized system in the country, which stretches from Simondium up to Saron. But the other side of the coin is, if there's an indication on a dashboard somewhere that there is a problem with a valve or a leaky pipe, whatever, we still need the man on the ground there to do the job. And that is the important thing. We aren't training artisans to do the job.
Okay, thank you for that question about the wheelie bins. When they go into implementation and the implementation is completed, it will have to go through a learning exercise. So it's not just this is the way it's going to be. That is the end result. So it won't pass a half a bin. It will clean a half a bin because that will save money for the next trip, or that will save the next trip. So the idea is to, over time, build up the profile of Drakenstein to know when and where to ship, to collect garbage, to optimize the routes and optimize the collection. So it's not, this is going to be how it works day one.